Hello friends, in this video I will explain you how you should go about answering an interview question pertaining to conflict management. So what I will cover in this video is why is the interviewer asking you questions pertaining to conflict management, what are the different types of questions they can ask which fall in the umbrella of conflict management, how not to respond to such questions, how you should go about formulating an answer to these questions, and what are the traits and characteristics that you should make use of. And lastly, I will talk about or share with you some sample Q&A questions and answers, which is how you should go about responding to certain questions when they are asked pertaining to conflict management. So why is the interviewer asking this question? Number one is the interviewer wants to understand whether you have good communication skills, because good communication skills can solve a lot of conflict. Just being clear, just being concise, just being a good listener, which is also part of communication, all of this helps to resolve most of the conflicts. So they want to make sure and they want to ensure that you as an individual they want to hire is a good communicator. So next, they want to understand whether you're someone who's calm, composed, and handles a particular situation of conflict with professionalism. The last thing they want to do is hire a hot-headed person who makes a big issue out of nothing. So when they're asking you this question, they are essentially trying to understand and evaluate your communication skills, your listening skills, your patience, and your ability to understand other perspectives. And in the end, they want to understand whether you have the capacity and capability to find a resolution or compromise that is in the best interest of the organization, even though if it is not in your own best interest. Now, one call out before we move further in this video, which is I have two requests for you. One, in case you find value in this video, do press the like button. And second is to subscribe to the channel so you get notified as soon as I post a new content. On this channel, I post content pertaining to career success and financial success for early and mid-career professionals. Now, here are some of the ways the interviewer may go about asking you conflict management questions. Tell me about a time when you disagreed with your manager. Tell me about a time when you had an issue or a conflict with your colleague. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with an unhappy or disgruntled client. How do you deal with differences of opinion when you're working within a team? Now, these conflict management questions can be bucketed into two key pillars. One is conflict related to business or a business conflict with your manager, with your colleague, or could be a personal conflict. It could be whether you have a personal conflict with an external client or an internal client, and similarly a business conflict with an external client or an internal client. So we will handle both or all these types of conflicts in this video. Now, before I go further to explain how you should go about formulating an answer to these questions, let me call out how you should not answer or what you should not call out as an answer to these questions, which would be detrimental to your interview. Number one, you should not say that you've never had a conflict. Number two, mentioning that you don't handle conflict well. And number three, don't give a very wishy-washy vague answer. Be very concise and be very practical when you're giving your answer. Now, when it comes to how you should go about formulating an answer to a conflict management question, you should make use of the CAR model. Now, I've made a separate video where I explain what is a CAR model and how it is used. And you can use this CAR model not just to answer a conflict management question, but any other behavioral question can be aced using the CAR model. So essentially in the CAR model, the C in the CAR stands for context. So you need to explain the context and the situation in which the conflict arises. Second is A, which is what actions did you take in order to resolve the conflict. Be sure to emphasize the steps you took in order to solve the conflict in a very professional and a very productive manner. Focus on what exactly you did in order to resolve the situation as against how the situation was resolved by the other colleague or your manager who were involved. And the R in the CAR model stands for results, whereby you share a positive outcome of all the actions that you took in order to resolve the conflict. And it's even better, although might be challenging for questions related to conflict management, where you can quantify the results, like the sales improved by X amount, just because now there was trust within the team, because all the conflict that existed within the team was resolved, and hence the team started to be more productive. And because of that productivity, the results improved. Now, no matter how the employer phrases the job interview question, they're looking for certain traits in you as to how you go about resolving the conflict, and are also looking for certain elements which you should not be using when trying to resolve a conflict. So let me talk about what are the key traits or elements that you should be making use of in your answer, so the interviewer can pick up those traits and qualify your answer as a strong answer. So number one, you have to convince the interviewer that when a conflicting situation happens, you stay calm and you try to understand the perspective of the other individual. Disagreements and conflicts do happen at workplace. However, do you have the capability and capacity to understand the other person's perspective and give them a listening ear to understand where are they coming from? Number two, you have to convince the interviewer that you stay logical and reasonable when handling the conflict and don't take anything personally or emotionally. Here, the best thing is to say that I make use of data and I make use of facts. So whenever there is a disagreement, either with my manager or with my colleagues on any project, I first and foremost make use of the data to convince everyone what my point of view is. Because data and facts don't lie, numbers don't lie, they are what they are. So you try to be more logical versus just speaking out of emotions. That is, your gut feels this way or you feel this way. Rather, you go about saying that the numbers say that the trend is going this way, and hence that is why you believe that this is the logical reason why a particular project should be done in this particular way and not in another way. So every time, make use of this phrase that I will make use of data to convince, and I will make use of this data to resolve a conflicting situation. So in conflict management questions, don't forget to include in your answer the fact that you made use of data in order to drive your point of view when you were trying to resolve a conflict or a disagreement. Number three, show them that you keep the company's interest in mind every time you're trying to resolve or work through a conflicting situation or a disagreement. Here, what I usually say is you can use in your answer that when you're trying to resolve a conflict, you bring that particular individual back to the strategy or back to the scope of the project, whatever the company wanted to drive. So the company had laid down a particular strategy or direction. It could be that they wanted to focus on one brand, which is brand A, over focusing on brand B. And now you have a disagreement on where should the funds go, because the brand manager of brand B wants funds for brand B, and hence there is a disagreement and you end up being in a conflict. So you make use of that strategy that the company has laid down, where the company or the CEO or the board already calls out that they want to drive brand A over brand B. And hence you call out that strategy and convince the individual using that strategy that it is not that you personally or emotionally want to drive a particular agenda against that particular brand that he's managing. Rather, it is the company's strategy to drive brand A, and hence you are putting more allocation of resources to brand A as against putting it for brand B. Now, number four is to bring in your answer an element that you also seek expert opinion. Here, the message that you want to drive with the interviewer is that you are not the kind of person who is know-it-all. Rather, there are certain things that you know, you are expert in, but then there are certain things you don't know. However, you know where to get an answer from. So for instance, if there is a disagreement or conflict as to how you should go about promoting a certain product, then it would be good you bring in the salesperson from that particular territory where you want to promote the product and seek his or her expert opinion as to what do they think is the right way or the best way that one should take in order to promote and drive that particular product or that particular brand which is under discussion. Now, lastly, in your answer, make sure the resolution that you come up with, which you're using to resolve the conflict, is a win-win situation. It should not sound as if you were the winner and the other person came out as a loser. Rather, both of you were the winners, because at the end of the day, the idea was to drive the company's mission, the company's strategy, and you both aligned to what that strategy is and how to drive it. Maybe it could be a situation where you took a few steps back and you made the other individual take a few steps back as well. However, in the end, it was a win-win case or a win-win resolution for the company. So the company won with whatever resolution you both came up with. So make sure, again, I'm repeating myself, is to drive home a win-win formula or a win-win resolution in your answer. Now let me call out two interesting questions that a few of my followers shared with me, and they wanted some help with these questions, and I really found them interesting because they were not typical conflict management questions. However, there was a conflict still in those questions which had to be resolved. So let me read out one of those questions. You've made a comment or criticized one of your colleagues in the meeting. Now, after the meeting, he wanted to talk with you about this because he's not okay with your behavior. What would you do? Here's simply number one, as I said, you have to understand other person's perspective. So you have to listen. You have to listen to understand where are they coming from, why did they not feel good. So first of all, understand all of that. Let them speak out their heart. So you have to set up a meeting with them, you have to connect with them and ask them to say whatever they want to say in all the details and talk out their heart. By the way, half of the issues in any conflict is simply resolved by letting people talk and share their grievances. When they share it out, they already feel very light. Second is for you to bring them back to the strategy, which is why you were doing this. So explain to them why you were doing this by bringing them back to the strategy or the objective. Number three is you explaining where are you coming from. So they also understand that when you acted or behaved or said certain things, why did you say them? And here, as much as possible, although for this particular question it might not be very easy, but as much as possible, bring it back to the company's objective and why that meeting was happening. How is it a win for the company? So one example could be maybe it was a performance review meeting and you were reviewing the performance of the team, and hence you ended up criticizing the team with regards to how the entire team, including yourself, performed. And this is a requirement that the company has, which is annually you sit down and you evaluate your performance. You say good things about whatever good happened and bad things, or criticize the things that didn't happen good, and how you will shape them and perform them better in the future. So you only call those things out. Now, it is also better to apologize where you were more aggressive and maybe you used a bad tone or a wrong tone. However, you want to communicate that the message was right. It may have been that the message was not delivered in the right way. So accept your mistake, because you also have to take some steps back, because you have to create some space for a win-win solution. You can't be just that individual who says, no, I was right and I was totally correct and you were totally wrong. So you can't do a win-lose. So in order for you to create a win-win situation, you also have to apologize in terms of the tone you used or the way you talked. However, the message was the right message and you wanted to drive that message. However, in future, you would try to do it differently and more politely. Now let me read out question number 2. You've got a project from another department and the head of that department isn't okay with you working on it. So he doesn't cooperate. How would you go about handling this situation? So here again, listen to understand. So first you sit down with that particular individual and understand where are they coming from. Second, you try to help them understand where are you coming from. And here you might want to add as to what your strengths are, what can you bring on the table, and how you can bring a diverse perspective or a diverse strength to the team, because you are coming from a place which is very diverse in terms of your expertise, and hence you can be an asset to the team. So you need to explain all of that. Another piece that you can do, which I talked about bringing in the expert, is maybe you can use a recommendation from your manager or from your colleagues who can talk to that particular individual and tell them how you are a strong candidate or a strong asset for their team, and would be the same for his individual or his particular team as well. So it kind of builds credibility. So you bring in those experts, people who are expert on you, who have seen you operate, and they can give that credibility to your work for that particular individual. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found value out of this video, and in case you did, I'm sure you would find value out of other content that I post on this channel. Now on this channel, I post content twice a week on how to achieve career success and financial success for early and mid-career professionals. Here is one video I would highly recommend you check out, which is how to be the best in what you do using skill stacking. So here's the link. And here is another video where I talk about personal finance and I share my own personal finance journey. I am sure this would be also interesting for you in case you're someone who wants to achieve financial freedom. Thank you.